Okay, let's unpack this. The sheer scale of it kind of hits you first, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
250,000 mourners just in St. Peter's Square.
Yeah, and maybe even more staggering leaders from 164 countries showing up.
Mm,
That number, it just really underscores the global impact, when this pope passed.
absolutely. It's fascinating seeing that convergence, isn't it? Religious devotion, political power, cultural influence, all focused right there.
Yeah,
It makes you think about the unique spot the papacy holds. It's way beyond just the Catholic Church itself.
exactly. So for this deep dive, we're looking right at the funeral of Pope Francis. We've pulled together news reports covering the event, basically as it happened live on Saturday, April 26, 2025.
Okay.
And our mission really is to understand the key parts of this funeral, how Pope Francis was honored, and, well, what this whole moment means for the church and, frankly, for the world.
Hmm.
We'll try to unpack the big events and maybe find some surprising details from that historic day.
And if you think about the bigger picture here, a papal funeral isn't just an ending. It's also, a beginning in a way.
That's true.
It's a moment to reflect on the legacy, sure. But everyone's also looking ahead. What's the future direction for this ancient institution?
Let's dive straight into the funeral service then. The reports called it a simplified service. Happened at the Vatican, lasted just over 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That feels very much in line with what we knew about Pope Francis, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It really aligns with his known preference for a simpler, less ornate approach. You saw it throughout his papacy.
Right.
So even this final farewell, it kind of reflects that desire for simplicity.
And leading the service was Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re. The reports noted he honored the Pope's leadership with, and I'm quoting here, an open heart toward everyone.
That phrase really resonates, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Especially when you think about Francis's whole emphasis on inclusivity. And Cardinal Re, he's the dean of the College of Cardinals. So for those maybe less familiar with the setup, he's the key figure in this interim time before the new pope is elected.
Ah, right.
So his words, they really set the tone for how people were reflecting on Francis's time as pope.
The service itself, well, it had the elaborate rituals you'd sort of expect, religious hymns, a homily, but the sheer number and, frankly, the caliber of people there. It's remarkable.
It really is.
Over 100 delegations, including some huge names. U.S. President Donald Trump, Ukraine's President Zelensky, Britain's Prince William, Macron from France, loads of other world leaders, monarchs.
It's like a snapshot of the current global power structure all gathered in one place.
It is.
And this gathering kind of underscores this fascinating aspect of the Vatican's influence.
Yeah.
Even secular leaders, they recognize the moral, the cultural authority the Pope holds.
Yeah, kind of soft power.
Exactly. A unique kind of soft power, different from just political or economic might.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The reports detailed a meeting before the funeral.
Oh. Inside St. Peter's Basilica, between Trump and Zelensky.
Wow, okay.
Apparently, the focus was pushing hard for a deal to end the Russia-Ukraine war. Zelensky even called the meeting symbolic.
Mm.
And Trump apparently posted online later about possible new sanctions against Moscow. Talk about a significant backdrop for a funeral.
That's quite something. You see this intersection of a deeply religious event with these incredibly pressing geopolitical issues.
Right.
The Vatican has a long history in diplomacy, of course, but this impromptu meeting really shows that influence is still very relevant today.
And it wasn't just the Vatican, was it? The global commemoration was really something.
How so?
Well, reports of nuns in India holding moments of silence, memorial masses in London. You had children in the Philippines offering flowers. Then these gatherings back in Pope Francis's hometown, Buenos Aires.
Oh, Bergoglio's home turf.
Exactly. And the atmosphere there was described as joyful, apparently. People felt these really personal connections to him, from his time as Archbishop there. That paints a picture, doesn't it? A figure who genuinely touched lives all over the globe in very different ways.
It does.
It speaks to that deep personal connection many people felt with Francis. His pastoral style, his efforts to reach out, it clearly left a mark.
Mm.
And the contrast you mentioned, solemn here, celebratory there, that really reflects the multifaceted impact he had.
Going back to the service, Cardinal Re's homily apparently focused on those defining aspects of Francis's legacy.
Right. What did they highlight?
His international and interfaith diplomacy came up a lot, and his constant focus on migrants.
That makes sense.
They specifically mentioned his very first trip as Pope, remember? to Lampedusa.
Yes, the island with so many migrant arrivals. A powerful statement right at the start.
And that mass he held on the U.S.-Mexico border, also very significant.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, his constant pleas for peace, amidst what the homily called raging wars.
He was tireless on that front.
There's even a quote they pulled out. "Build bridges, not walls," was an exhortation Francis repeated many times.
Well,
Which is a particularly striking message, isn't it, given who was in the audience, like President Trump.
that quote really sums up a core theme of his pontificate, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Building bridges, literally and figuratively, especially in a world often marked by division.
Yeah.
And citing Lampedusa, the border, those were indeed key moments showing his priorities.
The music and rituals were also central. Naturally, they used plain chant, that really ancient, evocative, liturgical music.
Beautiful stuff. Timeless.
And the Sistine Chapel Choir performed.
Hmm.
The Book of the Gospels was placed on the coffin. There was the sign of peace.
Which included that handshake between Trump and Macron,
Yeah.
reportedly.
Exactly. Then Holy Communion and the final commendation. It sounds like it was both, deeply traditional, but also profoundly moving.
Absolutely. The plain chant gives that sense of continuity with the church's long history. And these rituals, they provide a structure for the collective mourning and remembrance. Even the sign of peace. With that notable interaction, it underlines those themes Francis championed: unity, reconciliation.
But there were some unexpected bits, too, apparently.
Oh, like what?
Well, the reports highlighted the surprising journey of the coffin through Rome in the Pope Mobile.
Really? After the service?
Yeah, heading to the Basilica di Santa Maria Maggiore for the burial. And, of course, those impromptu leader meetings we talked about, like Trump and Zelensky.
Right.
And apparently, despite the solemnity, there was an overall sense of hopeful energy. It wasn't just a day of sadness.
Interesting. That Pope Mobile procession, that would have allowed many more people in Rome to pay their respects, wouldn't it?
Good point.
And the hopeful energy. Well, that probably reflects the deep faith of those present. And maybe a sense of looking forward, anticipating what's next for the church.
Let's talk about the burial itself, then. He was interred at Rome's Basilica di Santa Maria Maggiore.
Yes.
And this is pretty significant, isn't it? First pope in over a century to be buried outside the Vatican walls. What does that tell us?
It's highly symbolic. It really speaks volumes about Francis's personal wishes and his deep, long-standing connection to that particular basilica.
So it's a break from tradition.
A considerable break, yes. It kind of underscores his desire to be, in a sense, closer to the people of Rome, maybe.
And his will apparently specified a really simple tomb. Just the inscription, Franciscus, nothing else.
Incredible humility, isn't it? Even in death.
It is, and reports emphasize his strong connection to that basilica, and specifically to the Marian icon there, the Salus Populi Romani, protectress of the Roman people.
His devotion to Mary under that title was very well known. He visited the icon often.
Right.
So the simple tomb, burying him there,
Yeah.
it all reinforces that commitment to a less showy way of life
Right.
to the very end.
And one last detail that really stood out, groups representing the poor and marginalized were specifically invited
Invited where?
to line the steps of the basilica for the coffin's arrival.
Wow. That's a powerful final image, isn't it?
It really is a reflection of his priorities.
Absolutely. A final, tangible demonstration of his lifelong focus on those on the peripheries. Having them there underscores how central they were to his ministry, his vision.
So the funeral is over, he's buried. What happens now? The reports mention the start of Novendiali.
Ah, yes, the traditional 9 days of mourning in the Catholic Church.
Right. And then all eyes turn to the conclave, don't they, to choose the next pope. Expected early May, they said, no earlier than the 6th.
Correct. That's the next major step.
This feels like a really pivotal moment for the church.
It is indeed. The conclave, the gathering of the College of Cardinals to elect the new pope. It's a process steeped in centuries of tradition, but the outcome has immense significance for the church's future direction.
And it sounds like the field of candidates might be quite wide open this time, partly because of Francis's own reforms.
That's a key point. He made the body of voting cardinals much more geographically diverse, less Eurocentric.
How does that change things?
Well, his appointments, bringing in cardinals from many more parts of the world, especially the global south, it broadens the perspectives within that voting body.
So potentially a more varied discussion.
Exactly. More varied discussion about the priorities facing the church, and potentially a wider range of individuals considered for the papacy itself. Could be less predictable.
The process itself is just fascinating, isn't it? Cardinals under 80, locked in the Sistine Chapel, voting in secret.
Mm.
until someone gets that two-thirds majority. Sounds like something out of a movie.
Well, the secrecy is intentional, designed to ensure the cardinals can vote freely without outside pressure.
Right.
And the two-thirds majority requirement, that aims for a broad consensus, emphasizing unity in choosing the next leader.
And here's a potentially huge factor. Pope Francis appointed something like 80% of the cardinals who are actually eligible to vote this time.
That's a striking statistic, yes, 80%.
That level of influence has got to play a role in who they choose as a successor, surely.
It's a crucial piece of context.
Hmm.
Of course, the belief is that the Holy Spirit guides the process, but the human element, the composition of the electoral body, inevitably has an impact.
So cardinals he appointed might share his perspectives.
They may well share similar perspectives on the direction the church should take, yes, which could certainly influence the final choice. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it's significant.
The reports also stress how important the discussions before the vote will be among the cardinals themselves.
Absolutely. Those pre-conclave discussions, the general congregations, they're vital.
That's where they really hash things out.
Yes, it's their chance to understand each other's views, collectively figure out the most pressing needs of the church right now. It's a period of intense reflection before they actually go into the Sistine Chapel.
And finally, that diversity aspect again. More cardinals from developing countries, thanks to Francis's appointments. That demographic shift alone could really shape the future leadership and priorities, couldn't it?
It certainly could. This increased representation from the global south mirrors the changing face of Catholicism worldwide.
Right, where the church is growing fastest.
Exactly. Their unique perspectives, their experiences,
Mm-hmm.
they will undoubtedly enrich the discussions and could lead to a different understanding of the challenges and opportunities ahead.
So as we sort of wrap up our thoughts here, the key takeaway feels like this. Pope Francis's funeral wasn't just a Vatican event. It was truly global. It reflected his impact on millions all over the world. It had that traditional solemnity, of course, but also his own stamp, simplicity, connection to ordinary people, especially the marginalized.
Well said. And the gathering of world leaders, despite the solemn occasion, really underlined the unique geopolitical weight the Vatican still carries, even in mourning.
Yeah, that mix was striking.
It was a powerful display, really, of Francis's influence and the Church's ongoing role in global affairs. Ancient rituals meeting impromptu diplomacy. It highlights that multifaceted position the Vatican occupies.
Which leaves us with some food for thought for you, our listener. This whole process of picking a new pope, it's so steeped in history, but the implications for the future are huge. It really makes you think about the challenges, the opportunities facing the Catholic Church right now in this next chapter.
It does. It's a moment of transition that brings up those enduring questions, doesn't it? How does the Church stay relevant as a moral guide in such a fast-changing world?
Right.
How does it balance tradition with the need to engage with contemporary issues? The answers will shape the conclave discussions and likely the Church's direction for years.
And maybe specifically, what parts of Pope Francis's legacy do you think will be most influential when those cardinals cast their votes? Something to ponder, definitely.
A very good question to reflect on.
Absolutely. And hey, if you listening find yourself curious to maybe dive deeper into the history of papal transitions, or maybe explore who some of the potential candidates might be this time around, let us know.
Yeah, those are fascinating topics in themselves.
Definitely ones we could explore in future deep dives. For now, though, thanks so much for joining us for this one.